It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of February 25th, 2000. We got two movies to look at today, two movies with notably interesting histories behind them. One had a troubled production history, and the other had a weird marketing history. We'll get to that one a little bit later, but let's talk about the movie that had the big production problems going into it. That is Ben Affleck, Gary Sinise, and Charlize Theron, and John Frankenheimer's Reindeer Games. So the story of Reindeer Games is that you have this guy who's been in prison for 6 years on a Grand Theft Auto charge, played by Ben Affleck. He stays away from release as is his cellmate Nick, who's serving a 2-year sentence on a separate charge. Nick has a number of pictures from a romantic correspondence with a woman named Ashley, played by Charlize Theron. He has never met, but is waiting for his release. Rudy's looking forward to returning to his family and having a fresh cup of hot chocolate. However, Nick is killed defending Rudy during a prison riot. When Rudy is released the next day from prison, he recognizes Ashley waiting outside the prison for Nick, and Rudy takes his place, pretending to be Nick. Nick has spoken of his previous employment in security with an Indian casino, and Rudy finds himself involved with Ashley's criminal gunrunner brother, played by Gary Sinise. Rudy is violently coerced to cooperate with a Christmas Eve casino robbery scheme that Gabriel and his gang had been planning with Nick's casino knowledge as the key. Things, of course, don't go as planned, and a number of plot twists and double crosses happen, and certainly this is one of those movies that really, the history behind this film is pretty intense. I mean, this was a film that was originally screened to test audiences with a mixed response, which led to a lot of scenes getting reshot. There was additional editing. In fact, the release date for this was pushed back from Christmas to February, which, releasing this in February and having this Christmas setup makes no damn sense whatsoever. And you could tell that this film was pushed back because of those bad test screenings. And even if they put it out at Christmas, honestly, this film really would not have done well because the film itself is not that good. And it also doesn't help that there's like a number of different cuts of this movie. There's an extended director's cut. There's another cut that has a much more explicit sex scene between Ben Affleck and Charlize Theron that was different from the one included in the unrated cut. John Frankenheimer himself explained that he had to cut that for the theatrical release because he thought the film was going to get an NC-17 rating because of it. And like I said, it doesn't matter because the movie itself was bad. It's a badly made film. Charlize Theron has said this is her worst film she's ever made, and trust me, when you see some of the films that Charlize Theron has made, that's saying a lot that this is considered the worst film she's ever been involved in. I mean, I'm trying to look and see what other films she's in, but I know she's done a lot worse. I mean, the Fast and Furious movies, I think, are much worse films. She said yes to The Huntsman, Winter's War. I mean, there's much worse movies that she's been involved in. The Addams Family 2 is not a good film to be involved in. You were in Murder Mystery. Actually, she was one of the producers on that film. So, Reindeer Games is a bad film, but you've done a lot worse than this film, honey. Why am I even saying honey for? I'm at a loss for words right now. What I'm trying to say here, but the bottom line is, this is a bad film. It's a bad film also for John Frankenheimer, who had just had this little bit of a career renaissance a couple years prior to this with Ronin, with Robert De Niro, which was a really damn good movie. And then this film comes around. It's unfortunately the last film he made as a director before he passed away. And it was around the time that he passed away that he was actually going to do the Exorcist prequel, Exorcist the Beginning. But, of course, that got changed around when he passed away. And I believe the prequel, the Dominion prequel to The Exorcist was the one that he was going to do, was what that film was supposed to be afterwards. But is after he passed away. But I could be wrong on that. So, but this film was really messed up from the beginning. I think Nostalgia Critic made a good point when he talked about in his review how if this had been written as more of a dark comedy, this probably could have worked a lot better, but it's taking itself way too seriously, and you could tell what the twist is going to be right away. It's stupid twist. Nothing about these characters. You don't like any of these characters at all. The Christmas setup should be fun, but it just isn't, and the movie is just a mess. It's a massive mess on so many different levels, wasting a very good talented cast and a decent director, a really good director and a decent writer in Aaron Kruger. This was not a good film. This was a really, really bad film. Avoid this one like the plague. Not much more to say about that one, but you expect much more from Frankenheimer than this. But that's Reindeer Games, so let's go ahead and move on to the second film that had a lot of problems, but this time not with the production itself, but in terms of the marketing. I'll explain that after we show you this clip from Wonder Boys. So the story of this is that you have Michael Douglas playing a professor and writer who lives in Pittsburgh, who's struggling with writer's block. And whilst doing this, he also manages to get the Chancellor pregnant. The Chancellor, played by Frances McDormand. In the meantime, he and a college student, played by Tobey Maguire, are trying to find a rare jacket once owned by Marilyn Monroe. And a college girl, played by Katie Holmes, is boarding with Grady, has a bit of a crush on him. Now, on paper, this does not seem like the type of film that would have problems in terms of its marketing, but Paramount, when they put this out, they had a poster of Michael Douglas on the front of it. It's just him looking at you, like giving this kind of a creeper smile to him. Like the film had no idea the biggest thing with this movie is that they had no idea how to sell this film and market the film. And so what happened was, basically a lot of critics said that the film's initial ad campaign for the film didn't help have the film with a mainstream audience, but the Wall Street Journal said that Douglas's work in the film is great, but criticized the poster, which is just a headshot of Douglas. And someone else said that the film's ad poster brings Elmer Fudd to mind. And Hansen said that the poster made Douglas look like he was trying to be Robin Williams, which, yeah, the more I look at it, he looks like a wannabe Robin Williams. And in an interview with Amy Taubin, Hansen said, the very things that made Michael and I want to do this movie so badly were the reasons that it was so tricky to market. Since films go out on so many screens at once, there's a need for instant appeal, but Wonder Boys isn't easily reducible to a single image or a catchy headline. So basically what they did was that Hansen thought the studio played it safe with the ad campaign. If you see the trailers for this, it's much different compared to the trailers that came afterwards. They also released it a week after the Oscar nominations were announced, and they spent more money promoting the films of theirs and were nominated, not on Wonder Boys. So basically what happened was they pulled the film out of theaters, they quickly canceled the video release, and Hansen and Scott Rudin, the producer of the film, lobbied to have it re-released. So they basically waited about February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, 10 months. They waited 10 months to re-release this movie into theaters. They created a brand new poster, a brand new advertising campaign that emphasized the ensemble cast. I mean, the trailer is literally a longer version of that commercial you just saw. And it's a bit much. I mean, unfortunately, it didn't really help itself in the long run when this film made it back to theaters. I mean, this thing cost $55 million to make, and it was considered a bomb, grossing only $20 million here in the States and another $14 million in other countries as well. But actually, it doesn't say what the film did in November. Let me check real quick. Okay, this re-release did not do very well. I don't know if Paramount had planned to put this film on wider release or not, but when it opened up in November, it did not make much of an impact afterwards. It only brought in $87,000, and I think it opened up on a Wednesday, too, in November, so that's not a good sign for this film. But is the movie itself bad? I mean, Curtis Hanson is a very solid director. We've talked about a lot of his movies on this show. We talked about Bad Influence. We talked about the L.A. Confidential, which is one of my favorite films, and this was right in the middle of a really good hot streak for him. He had this, L.A. Confidential, 8 Mile, Inner Shoes, which is a criminally underrated Cameron Diaz movie with Toni Collette. He also had Too Big to Fail, and he hasn't made a film since Chasing Mavericks, which, I don't know, I don't think he passed. Oh, he did pass away. I thought he was still making movies, but no, he died back in 2016, and that really kind of explains why he hasn't made movies since then. But this is not a bad movie. It's hard. I think they basically summed it up. It's really hard to sell this film. I mean, the reason why, like I said, the reason why Hansen and Douglas wanted to work on this is because they knew the challenge of marketing this movie was not going to help them in the long run, and the results speak for itself here. It's really hard to really get a grasp on how to sell this film to people, but it's still a really solid film. It's a really well-done dramedy in a way. Michael Douglas is great in the film, so is Robert Downey Jr., so is Tobey Maguire. Phenomenal cast overall in this film. I mean, Douglas, Maguire, McDormand, Holmes, Rip Torn, Downey Jr., Richard Thomas, Jane Addams, Alan Tudyk, Philip Bosco. There's just a phenomenal cast in here, and there are a lot of really good ideas to this film overall. And again, maybe it's just because it's shot in near my home city. This is just a film that I've always had this thing with films shot in Pittsburgh. I just kind of have to really. There's very rarely any Pittsburgh movies that I really have a lot of bad things to say about it. There's some bad ones, but not all the way through overall. But But this is a really good film. Even if it wasn't shot in Pittsburgh, I would still say this is a really solid film that really was tough to sell all the way through. But in the end, when you actually see the film, it's definitely more than worth it. It's worth it just to see the movie on its own merits. If you want to see some really damn good performances from a lot of really good, talented people. Yeah, not much more to say about this one. This is a really good film. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's one of those little surprises I did not see coming, really. Definitely check it out, Wonder Boys. So with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. We got 5 movies to look at next time around, including Madonna and Rupert Everett in The Next Best Thing. Yeah, it's Madonna and Rupert Everett. I was thinking somebody else was in there. But we also have Drowning Mona. We have Three Strikes. We have Gary Shandling and What Planet Are You From? And we also have Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai. So 5 films overall to look at. We will delve into those on the next episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I will see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you very much for watching, I'll see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.